Welcome back to the Breakwaters podcast. Yes, special guest, first returning guest from the podcast. I had to call a number one hockey supporter. So I called my man Jurgen Coney back. He's back. We're gonna talk a little hockey today. How you doing?
I didn't even realize that. Honestly, that I was the first ever returning guest. I'm honored. I feel honored. I'm just now realizing that. Oh no! In all seriousness, no, brother. I'm happy to be back on. It's been a little bit. Not for the people watching. It's going to be recent, but for us, it's been a little bit since we got to record and talk. And I'm happy to come back on. And what the second that you hit me up during the Stanley Cup final, if I wanted to come back and talk some hockey, I was down, bro. I'm ready to talk some hockey.
Let's start off with the series. Let's go game by game. I like going game by game.
Mm-hmm.
So, would you take out of each game, or you want to start off with something that you enjoyed?
Yeah, so overall, I very much enjoyed the Stanley Cup final. To me personally, I felt it was the best Stanley Cup final matchup on paper we had since like 2015. I felt like this was the Stanley Cup final matchup that fans have been waiting for the last couple of years. I think the Tampa Bay Lightning, of course, going for the three-peat, that in and of itself is big, but I think the Colorado Avalanche, after Tampa won their first cup, honestly, everyone, you saw lists of the next teams that need to break through, right? And Colorado was towards the top of every single list in that conversation, because this core, you think of even what they were the last couple of years, Nathan MacKinnon and Rantanen and Cale Makar, those are three guys that you could build a championship team around, not even getting into what the rest of that team was. So this was a highly anticipated matchup. We honestly could have seen it at any point in the last 3 years. And I think that added to the excitement. Game one and two combined really showed that Colorado had the speed advantage in the series and that they could just blow by Tampa Bay if need be. And I think it exposed Tampa's defense. Game three, we saw, I think, what everyone expected after they lost those first two. We knew Tampa was going to come back, and they played a lot better. Game four just came down to overtime, and the penalty that should have been a penalty but wasn't called a penalty that led to the Nazem Kadri overtime winner. Game five, it was expected. I didn't think the Lightning were going to lose in five, and so that was easy. And then game six, I think, was the biggest surprise and disappointment overall for Tampa Bay at the end of it, because I felt you could just tell that they had ran out of it. I know they said that they didn't after the game, but you could tell that I think Tampa just ran out of gas. I think Colorado's defense was too much for them to deal with, and I think that's ultimately what led the Avs to win this series. Is there people are going to look at the first two games and think of the offense, but their defense, this is the best defense that Tampa Bay has faced in the last 3 years, and Colorado proved it.
Definitely agree. I thought Nichushkin got robbed of the MVP. He had like 5 goals. I mean, I was really pulling for him, but I'm gonna give it to Cale Makar. I like Cale Makar, but Nichushkin, you're watching this, you should have won it, man. You should have won the MVP.
It's the thing with the NHL is that it's unlike all the other sports. It's the total playoff MVP, and you look from game one of that Nashville series to game 6 of Tampa Bay. Like, Nichushkin came on in the Stanley Cup final. I think Landeskog did as well. Nathan MacKinnon, of course, is that team's like face of the franchise, but Cale Makar was not even just on that team. I think he was the best player in the playoffs throughout the entirety of it. So I definitely get the argument for anybody else because that Colorado team is so stacked, but I think Cale Makar proved very, very much so that he deserved the Conn Smythe Award.
Yeah. What did you think of game one? So two overtimes, the game one, game four. What did you think of game one? You think Colorado was going to win that game, or?
Yeah, going into it, I expected Colorado to win it. They had way more, like the whole rest versus rust. I think it's very much a case-by-case basis because I know people brought that up when Tampa had faced New York, and you saw what happened to Tampa in that series. They fell down 0-2. And Tampa was coming off the more intense series against the Rangers versus Colorado. I mean, it wasn't easy games, but they still swept Edmonton. They got more time. So I think with the Avs, they came out ready. It was the kind of speed that the Lightning just hadn't seen since like the Maple Leafs in round one, and Colorado was even faster than Toronto. So that just lets you know that it was going to cause problems. Now, Tampa scared a lot of people, especially Avs fans, because they did come back. They did tie that game. And again, like I think overall for the series, I think what we could really just boil it down to was Colorado's defense in Tampa for the first time, I think in this 3-year run, they made mistakes that we just didn't see them make. It was a complete, like people forget, but the Burakovsky goal was only set up because it was just a complete, misplay by Tampa Bay trying to with the puck. So I think, of course, Colorado deserves it. I'm not going to sit here and say they don't deserve it. The Stanley Cup to me is the hardest trophy to win in sports, arguably. So you deserve to hold up those sort of 30 pounds, 35 pounds, however much it weighs of sterling silver at the end. But I think two of those games in the series going to overtime, Colorado won both of them. If we flip those results, Tampa's the Stanley Cup champions again, right? Like sometimes it just comes down to it, and Colorado took advantage. And game one was the prime example of that. They took advantage of Tampa not being at their best. And sometimes that's all you have to do to win a game. You just have to take advantage of your opponent.
You gotta take advantage of the crunch time. Times matter most. That's especially in the playoffs. Game two. Ever since game two, I watched game two. After that, it confirmed to me Colorado was the champion. 7-0. I never saw that, especially in the playoff game. It's like a football score. 7-0. I never seen that before, and they just dominate. Goal after goal. McCarr had 2 goals. My boy Nichushkin had 2 goals. So I wanted to see a hat trick with one of them, but didn't work out. And then they showed Cal McCarr's dad in the stands, and they're like, "Oh, he needs for son to get a hat trick for Father's Day." I was rooting for Cal McCarr the hat trick, but it was ever since then I was like, Colorado's gonna win this, because I don't think Tampa was gonna come back after that.
Right. I think like that was definitely. Tampa did come back to win that game, but I think that was the game that gave Colorado their overall confidence of no matter what Tampa throws at us, we can respond back. And like it's really funny because Tampa really did start playing a lot better defensively for themselves after that game. When you really think about it, in game 3, I think they only let up 2 goals. Game 4, they only let up 2 in regulation. Game 5, I want to say they only let up 2, if I'm not mistaken, 1 or 2. And then game 6, they only let up 2. So for the rest of that series in regulation, Tampa was excellent defensively. But I just think at the end of the day, it's kind of like what we saw in that 7-0 blank. I think the more telling thing wasn't Colorado's offense in that game. It was their defense. The fact that they held Tampa Bay to a shutout in that game. I think that was more telling than anything else from that.
Game 3 is like the champions. They come back. I knew the champs was gonna at least get like 2 or 3 wins. I knew they aren't gonna go up down 3-0, just like the Ranger game. Unfortunately, I don't want to talk about that here. Big Ranger fan, but came back 6-2, just like what they did with the Rangers. They knew the good teams know how to come back, get some big W's. It was good to see them win game 3, but they lost game 4 on their home ice.
Yeah.
3-1, and I think that was the turning point right there. If they would have had those 2 games going back to Colorado, it would have been something different.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I think that the game 4 overtime goal with Kadri, scoring it. First off, props to Nazem Kadri on being a Stanley Cup champion just for him, like the big congratulations for him personally. But yeah, that goal was a turning point, and I also think that was the turning point for just the I think mentally. That's when Colorado got the edge. Like I know we want to talk about calls and we want to talk about how the players performed during the game, right? But I think people forget. You understand this, George. Yourself. It's the mental makeup, and I think that game, what it did was it gave Colorado the mental edge for the rest of the series. I think that's what it did at the end of the day, and it was big for them to say, obviously, because they ended up winning. But I think the mental advantage that they gained, I don't think it could be overstated. I think that was the biggest thing to come out of that game 4 victory.
They won game 5 though, but it still wasn't enough. Game 6 in Tampa Bay, I thought it was actually going to go to Colorado. So I thought Tampa Bay was going to win the home ice, but didn't work out. Blankinen had the 2-1. They're both close games. 2-1. Game 6, game 5 was 3-2. So I enjoyed those 2, the close, low scoring game. And I really enjoy that. Those closest playoff atmosphere.
Yeah.
Really good, those 2 games. And after those 2 games, I really didn't care who was going to win at that point.
Right. No, I was with you. I really did expect game 6 to go. I thought Tampa was going to force the game 7. I really did, because I fully expected it. And it can't be said enough about this guy, but Andrei Vasilevskiy deserves a massive shout out. I don't think people really understand. We could throw out the numbers, and before the series, his record in elimination games was like this, and that, and he had like 6 shutouts in his last 7 or 8 elimination game victories. I don't think people, even with all those stats, I don't think people really understand that Andrei Vasilevskiy is the best goalie in the game. And he is in a 1-game sample. I even said this to people that I know with hockey. Like, if you give me the history of the game, one goalie to just win me 1 game, and that's it, I think Andre Vasilevsky is in the conversation now fully. Like, I don't think people understand just how truly special and great he is. And people love to dance on Tampa's graves because they lost the series and they hope that they're not going to be able to get back. But I hope that when people watch Tampa Bay Lightning games, I think people need to appreciate Andre Vasilevsky more. He's one of the best goalies in the game, and he's the best of his generation right now.
I agree. He's the best goalie right now. But I have a hot take. Winner take all game. I'm taking Lundqvist and Vasilevsky.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that?
Hey man, that's fair. At the end of the day, I think the list of guys that you want in that game, I don't blame you, because I think Henrik Lundqvist, he's one of those guys that I think when history looks back on, you're really going to see how great he was, and it was just a failure in some way, shape, or form of the Rangers in front of him that ultimately led to it, right? I think you think back to that 2014 Stanley Cup final. I know that series ended in 5, but correct, I think 2 of those games at least went to OT. And that's another thing where if you just go the other way with it, the Rangers could have been up in that series and it wouldn't have ended as quick as it did. Like the quote unquote, like the lack of Stanley Cup, I don't put it on Henrik Lundqvist's shoulders. That dude carried the franchise for a decade. When the Knicks were bad in the Garden, when people are like, oh, the Knicks are bad, what's happening at MSG that we should go to? New York Rangers hockey, because the king was there, you know? He's not LeBron, but this is hockey. We have a different king in hockey, and King Henrik was the reason to go to a Madison Square Garden home game for a decade in a town that is a basketball town. Like, let's be real here, for a decade, Rangers or Knicks, who's going to frustrate you less, And that was the Rangers.
All right, so we're not gonna do quick fire. You know you like the quick fire, but we're gonna try to change it up a little bit. I'm gonna ask you some recent sports questions.
Yes, sir.
Do you believe the hype, or you don't believe the hype?
Let's do it, brother.
You ready? Yeah. So I said before this year, I said Aaron Judge is gonna get over $300 million for his new deal. What do you think? Believe or hype or not?
I'm honestly, I would almost take it a step further. I think there's a chance he becomes the first. Well, maybe not the first. I always forget what Trout's contract was. I think he could get $400 million. I really do. I think Aaron Judge could end up even getting more than what we're expecting from him. Like right now, he has to be the AL MVP. There's no questioning it, no second it. Everyone, all the Yankees fans, because you remember this, Aaron Judge's rookie season, he comes in, he has the 50-plus home runs, like his full rookie season, and Altuve got the MVP that year. And to this day, I have friends who are Yankees fans who are saying that Judge should have gotten that MVP award. Like if he stays healthy, and this season he's done a good job at that. And I think the Yankees have also done a good job. He had like a rest day within the last week or so, and I think here and there they can afford to do that. I think Aaron Judge right now should be everybody's AL MVP. If he's not, I would love to see who your pick is, but I think he should be the AL MVP right now. So if he can complete that season for the Yankees, if he can, help him get on a deep run, maybe a World Series appearance this year, and he plays well in the playoffs, I think Aaron Judge is in line for a $400 million contract.
Yeah, I agree. I picked him for AL MVP. My co-host has said that I'm crazy. But see, our predictions lining up beautifully right now. So I gotta props out to myself for that.
Yeah, it's a good pick, man. I'm telling you, like Aaron Judge right now, I know a lot of people would say Ohtani, and he's having an amazing season once again. Don't get me wrong, but Aaron Judge, I know Ohtani is more complete because he has the 2-way game, but let's be real here. Like, this is the best version of Aaron Judge we've seen in a while. Like, this is what we've been waiting for if you're New York fans, and Aaron Judge he's delivered. Do
you believe the hype that Aaron Hicks or Joey Gallo will be traded this year?
I could see it, because I think, me personally, my biggest thing, and I also, on one of my podcasts one of my co-hosts is a Yankees fan, so we had this discussion actually. But there was some disappointment about the Yankees' lack of going after rotation pieces in this past MLB offseason. Now, maybe in parts because the lockout eventually happened, and before the lockout, after the lockout, was a whole big thing. But I could see either guy being moved in order to get a little bit more in the bullpen, at least. I don't know if you could really get like a real prospect back. Maybe you get like a 23-year-old kid back. But I think the big thing for the Yankees would just be if you could just add arms to that bullpen at the end of the day. We've seen the trade deadline can really help teams in the last couple of years. You look at the Atlanta Braves. a lot of pieces on that championship team in that playoff run, they got at last year's deadline because they were so injured last season. For the Yankees, it's not so much about injury right now. They're looking very healthy, but it's more of just building depth for insurance purposes. And because they're so good hitting wise, I think you can stand to sacrifice a hitter to get a little bit more pitching in there. So I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be surprised if one of those guys gets traded.
That's how like Andujar better. Like this guy, man, for the heart and soul of this organization. He should have got Rookie of the Year instead of Ohtani. Ohtani was hurt that year. Like he led the league in doubles. I'm still mad to this day. Andujar should have won the Rookie of the Year that year. He got robbed, and he deserves playing time. I feel like if they trade us, Andujar's going to impact Yankees really well, and he could play third. He could play first as well, and be a good piece for them.
That's the thing I think with the Yankees is that why you can give up on a Hicks or a Gallows because you have the depth in the organization. Let's be real here. You have guys that are ready that could perform. They just need the opportunity, and maybe they just want to like. This is very much a baseball thing and other sports as well, hockey as well. Like they would rather stick with the veterans over young players a lot of the time. And I get the mindset, but at some point you need to do something what's right for the organization. I'm kind of with your logic. If you're going to let one of those guys go. And Duhar is right there for you, or even someone else in the organization. Like you're the Yankees. You'll find somebody, right? Like Hicks, Gallo. No disrespect. I'm not. If I like Yankees fans shouldn't lose a wink of sleep if one of those guys is traded. Let's be real here. They shouldn't.
Yeah, Ranger question. I'm not too excited to ask. I know what the answer is going to be from myself. So I know it's not going to be low. Do you think the Rangers? You believe in the hype? Rangers are going to make the playoffs again? Maybe go even further?
Oh, they're definitely going to make the playoffs again. Like, the baseline is now established. The Rangers have to be a playoff team the next couple of years. You have one of the best defensemen in the game on the blue line in Adam Fox, who's going to be a Norris Trophy candidate for the next, decade of his career, it feels like. You have some great offensive players on that team in the forward core. Artemi Panarin is one of the top 5-10 forwards in this game. I don't know why people don't talk about him more. But he's supremely talented. I'm a Chicago Blackhawk fan, so I'm very jealous and envious of the fact that you guys have him now. So I miss Breadman, and I actually went to a Rangers game towards the end of the regular season, and getting to watch Panarin live in the Rangers uniform, I was happy, but I was just like, dang, why couldn't he still be a Blackhawk, man? So, so you have him, Chris Kreider, with a complete renaissance of his career. I thought Chris Kreider was going to look like one of the worst contracts in hockey, like with what things were looking like there because you look at the last couple of years, look at some of the guys who play very similar to Chris Kreider that got the big contracts and where they are now. They're all injured or they're all completely underperforming. I thought Kreider was going to be that, but I think Gerard Gallant really used Kreider, I think, a lot better than what he's been used in the last couple of years, just parking him in front of the net constantly, always having the right players around him on the ice. I think Gerard Gallant was an amazing. I was a big fan of his hire last offseason, and he proved that this year, I think, with the season that the Rangers had. And then in that, if Vasilevsky is the best goalie in the game right now, I think you guys have the number 2 in Igor Shesterkin. And the base is there to be a consistent playoff team. The question of if they could go further, I think it really depends. The teams in the East, just think of the teams that made the playoffs this year in the East, Tampa's going to be back. They need to obviously fix up their roster a little bit, but Tampa's going to be back. Toronto is going to be back. I don't think a lot of people realize that Toronto, they drew the Lightning in the first round. That's extremely unlucky. If the Maple Leafs face anybody else in the first round, they win that series. If they had faced Florida in the first round, the Maple Leafs would have beat the Panthers easily. So I think Toronto's going to be back. Carolina's a good regular season team. Of course, you guys have the confidence that you beat them, but they're still going to be back. The Panthers, I think there's a lot of questions about that team this offseason. And hiring Paul Maurice as a head coach to me was a bit of a head scratcher. So I think there's questions there. The Bruins might fall off the hardest right now. I know I'm not going to go too deep into that, but I'm just looking at the rest of the picture. I think the Rangers playoffs for sure. I think they should get past the first round next year, depending on the opponent, and we go from there. But yes, the Rangers, once again, they have a playoff team for a long time to come.
What about Pittsburgh? My boy Sidney Crosby. He's going to be back.
I mean, Letang and Malkin, man, that's the thing. There's a lot of I'm reading a lot. I'm trying to keep up with as much news as I can. We got the draft upcoming. The draft will have passed us, I think, by the time that the people see this. But Like there, I have been trying to keep up with the news as much as I can. A lot of people believe that Letang and Malkin are out of there, and I'm like, it's going to be really interesting to see what the Pittsburgh Penguins look like with just Sidney Crosby. Like I know there are other players there, like Jake Gensel's still going to be there, but let's be real here. Like you lose Malkin and Letang, it's going to be it's going to be interesting. So Pittsburgh's a wait and see for me, and same with the Washington Capitals. Those are two very veteran teams, and I think we have to wait till this offseason's finished to really get a gauge on them because they, especially the Penguins, could have a completely different roster by October.
I'm gonna piggyback on that real quick for the next question. The Rangers always feel they go far in the playoffs and they get a first round exit. I hope I don't see that. I think that's what's gonna happen. But it's gonna be good. It's gonna be a good couple of years. Good. I think they'll make the playoffs a lot, but getting over the hump, like you said, it's a lot of tough teams. Lightning, got the Maple Leafs, as you said. Colorado is gonna be there. Edmonton, I think they could always make a run at the cup as well. So there's always all these teams that be fighting for the cup, and it's gonna be tough.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's always to me interesting in the offseason. Like that's why I personally like I don't get into the whole can they make it back thing until we are a couple weeks in, because we got to see who signs who. We got to see who goes to another team. Like we just need to see things play out, I think. And with what could happen with Tampa and Toronto this offseason, will Carolina or Florida make a move, especially in net for both of those teams? Like a lot of teams have a lot of questions right now. The Rangers, you could maybe argue, have less questions. So I think that's something that plays into their advantage. But yeah, no, you need to see how the East looks out. But for, like we already said, expectations, like the Rangers should be one of like the teams you look at in the Eastern Conference next season. I don't doubt it.
I think so. Kevin Durant, he's the talk of the town here in New York.
This guy. Keep going.
The hype. I think he's gonna do well wherever he goes. You think it's gonna hurt his legacy? You think it hurts his legacy? What's your take on the whole Kevin Durant situation?
Like, first off, no matter where he goes, he's gonna perform. Like, this is Kevin Durant we're talking about. I know he's 34, but Kevin Durant still has 4 more years of being an all-star caliber player, minimum. So I think with KD, you don't have to worry about the production. I think with him, it's maybe more so about the help in terms of like the team acquiring him and the pieces that you still have surrounding you once you get him. Because of course, he's locked into a 4-year deal. You got to trade for him, right? So, but I don't have any doubts there. Now, your other question. Man, like I don't know what to think about this dude anymore. I really don't. Now, here's the thing. I fully understand you wanting to get away from Kyrie Irving, right? Like I support Kevin Durant's venture for that. I don't blame him there. He's not completely absolved of the blame because he allowed Kyrie Irving to act like the petulant child he is. He was okay with Kyrie Irving and the organization going with a head coach that didn't have basketball experience as a head coach at the pros. And the only reason that the Nets did that is because Kyrie and a little bit of KD wanted to have a head coach that wasn't going to be too much of a taskmaster. He was okay with that. He essentially, because DeAndre Jordan is so close to him and Kyrie, like they wanted him in the lineup. That's what got Jarrett Allen traded. Jarrett Allen made an all-star team this past year. They got Kenny Atkinson fired. Kenny Atkinson just got a championship as the assistant coach of Golden State and then promptly backed out of the Charlotte Hornets job, which right there, high IQ. I get people saying that KD should want to leave Kyrie. And again, I support him there, but I just don't think like a lot of this is still his fault, man. I don't buy it for the people that are trying to think that he's a saint here. Like I'm a big athlete guy. Let me clarify. I will support the athletes, but I think Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving have done a lot of damage to the Nets, and I think they've also done a lot of damage to the league. I think the next collective bargaining agreement, because we talk about the whole player empowerment thing, I think the owners are going to take a very hard stand on a lot of the things in the current CBA. And it's because of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. Mainly Kyrie, but some Kevin Durant in there as well. I think the two of them. And hard. Superstars in general, like the superstars that have made messes, right? The Kyrie, Harden, KD, Anthony Davis, Jimmy Butler with Minnesota, Bradley Beal right now. Because yes, I know Bradley Beal re-signed for that max contract. He could still ask out in a year or two. And he signed to get the money because the Wizards you cannot be signed and traded and get your full 5 years, right? You can only get 4 max. when Jimmy Butler was traded from Philly to Miami in the sign and trade, you could only get the max of 4 years on the sign and trade for a player. You can't do all 5. So Bradley Beal signed his 5-year deal now with Washington, and if he still wants to ask out for a trade, he's got his money. Like that's why he did it. So the next collective bargaining agreement, the owners are going to it's going to be a dangerous one for the league. I think it's going to be worse than what the last one was, because I think a lot of these guys they've not gotten into the good graces with owners. And two of the main players we're talking about here is Kyrie and Kevin Durant. Like they're two of the big reasons for that.
I'm really not looking forward to Nets basketball. I'd rather have Kyrie than Russell Westbrook. I mean, Kyrie for Russell Westbrook, I really don't want that to happen. Like, if I was Sean Marks, the gym, I'd be like, Kevin, love you. Let's try for 1 year. We got you, Kyrie, Ben Simmons. See what they can do. And then after that, we'll trade you whatever you want. If it doesn't work, we'll trade you wherever you want. I think that's a fair thing to do. But
I also think I don't know if it was KD, Kyrie, or like someone close to them. Like I forget what it was, but like the idea that they feel disrespected in Brooklyn, that is the dumbest thing I've heard. They have acquiesced to everything that you both have wanted. Everything. I'm normally not this harsh on the players, but these two are just the biggest boneheads in basketball. Like it's the dumbest thing. And to your point, because I didn't answer it, my bad. On KD's legacy, man, KD I think is going to be the first ever superstar in the history of the NBA where we're really going to go deep into the analysis when we look back at his career. Like when LeBron retires, bro, in 15, 20 years from now, we're not going to point out there's just the finals losses. We're going to say that was the greatest player of his generation, and he's one of the 3 greatest players to ever play the game of basketball, right? Michael Jordan, to this day, a lot of people still have him as the GOAT. A lot of people will always see him as the GOAT. And if you think that maybe LeBron or Kobe was better than him, you're going to think the same thing. That's one of the greatest players to ever play the game. And we're going to think to ourselves, MVP, 6 rings, etc. Same with LeBron, same with Kobe, same with Kareem. I think Kevin Durant's going to be the first ever superstar where we need to go back and like, well, yeah, you won 2 championships, but yeah, you were the MVP, but yeah, you were the amazing player, but I think there's a lot of buts that I think people are going to be way more harsh on Kevin Durant compared to any other superstar we're ever going to see in 10 to 15 years from now. I really do.
So you got one more question about the Celtics. The Celtics, man. We got. You think they're gonna push? They're gonna make a run next year? What do you think? You believe the hype or you don't?
So I think Malcolm Brogdon was an amazing signing. I don't think Marcus Smart can be a starting point guard on a championship team. I think he could be a starting 2 guard, but I don't think he should be the point guard. I think you saw in this series, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum needed a lot of playmaking help. They needed that other guy who could help get shots for people, and especially for the 2 of them each. I know people are going to try to blame like Jason Tatum's performance on the whole shoulder thing. Let me be real with you, Chief. If you think the Golden State Warriors were healthy, I don't know what to tell you. No one's healthy this time of year in the playoffs. Same with hockey, man. Like you saw the injury list that both Colorado and Tampa showed. Like you're not healthy at the end of the season. You're just never healthy. And I think first off, at least for me, that really just puts into perspective what LeBron did for 8 years and 9 out of 10 years where he always made the finals, and like what that must have done to his body that he did every single year. And these guys just break down and can't perform. I think that that just puts into perspective for him. But for the Celtics in particular, they have a chance. Like I said, I love the Malcolm Brogdon trade. They gave up nothing for him essentially. Like if you like Aaron Nesmith, sure, but you could replace him easily on that roster. I think the Celtics still need to make another move or 2, just because I think Milwaukee's going to come back and they're going to be better. Depending on what the Chicago Bulls do, they might be really good. I'm saying depending because I didn't buy into the Bulls hype before the season. I thought they were going to be a first round exit at best if they faced one of the real teams. Then look whose prediction came right. I think the Miami Heat are still going to be in the conversation. You know, yes, you did beat them in 7 games, but it came down to the very final shot. So like the Celtics should be in the conversation for being a great team once again, but the East is a very difficult conference. And similar to what we spoke about with the Rangers, I think we need to see what happens as this offseason goes. I think we'll be a lot better situated to put predictions on paper in like another month or two, because right now you still have to wait if Miami makes a move to try to get Duncan Robinson off, maybe if the Bucks make a move for their depth. They brought back Bobby Portis. Maybe they could swing for one of these underrated guards or wings that's in the free agency class right now still remaining. I think there's definitely some pieces that they could go after for like a mid-level exception and minimum deals that could help that team. I think the Philadelphia 76ers, Harden is going to come back and take a team-friendly deal. They got PJ Tucker. They stole him from Miami, but like PJ Tucker is an amazing defensive piece and a veteran there. Like the East is getting better. So I'll say this. I'm very happy the Celtics made a move. I hate it when teams stay stagnant. Like do something to help your team get better if there's a flaw. And they did that. So I'll give them credit. I'll give them the respect. Should they be one of the like the first 3-4 names you think of to come out of the East next year? Yes, absolutely. But are they the definitive favorite? No. If I had to give you my definitive favorite, I have the Bucks.
The Celtics beat your team, man. So hopefully change that narrative, and hopefully you guys get Kevin Durant. Hopefully that happens.
I'm holding out hope for it. I don't think it's going to happen because I think it's way too complicated because Bam and Ben Simmons can't be on the same team, like contract wise. There's a whole rule, but I mean, hey, if Miami goes for it, we may need to do an emergency episode. I might be the first ever 3-time guest on this podcast if Kevin Durant gets straight to the Heat, because we'll have a lot of fun there. But yeah, we'll see what happens with old buddy and his Twitter fingers. You already know the second that he gets traded, we're going to see some Twitter replies to him and people calling him out and him clapping back. So that's what I can't wait to see on NBA Twitter here in the next couple of months.
For sure, yeah, I agree. And this is a good episode. Thank you, Jurgen, for coming on again. The first returning guest, making history. And we'll see you in the splash.